Good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 18th day of Nisan. Chai Nisan. Today is the birthday of the Rebbe's father, and it is the day that the Rebbe had the bris in 1902. Very special day indeed. We continue in chapter 31, and as we mentioned yesterday, chapter 41, Mem Aleph in the Tanya. And as we mentioned yesterday, this is a very fundamental chapter. And the Rebbe, on many occasions, insisted that people should study this, should memorize the first part of this chapter. And also the Rebbe included one of the passages of this chapter in the 12 passages that the Rebbe instructed that children should memorize. And this is what we learned yesterday. V'hinei Hashem nitzav alav, that Hashem stands upon him, and the whole world is filled with his glory. And he looks at him, and he searches the inside of the person and the heart of the person, if he serves him properly. And Alter Rebbe talks about the importance, the basic, the foundation of serving Hashem. He calls it the beginning of the work of serving Hashem, the ikar, the main point, the focus of this service of Hashem, and the roots of serving Hashem is to have, in addition to love of Hashem, we need to have the awe, the fear of Hashem. And that he calls it the beginning. And this is the ikar, the main part of the work. And this is the roots. What does it mean, the roots? Just like a root of something. There's a difference between a foundation and a root. But they seem to be very similar. But the foundation is something, not every part of the building really is dependent on the foundation equally. If you have a tall building, the first floor is not so much dependent on the foundation. The top floor is much more dependent on the foundation. But when you're talking about a root of a tree, every part of the tree is dependent on the root. It gets its nourishment. It gets its life from the roots, through the root, even the leaf that is on the bottom. So the same thing here. What the Alter Rebbe is describing in this chapter, the service of Hashem, using the yiras Hashem, the fear of Hashem, the awe, and as the Alter Rebbe is described, realizing how the Eibishter God is Meloi Kol Haaretz Kavod, he fills the entire world, and everything comes from Hashem. And yet Hashem chose to be upon us. Hashem chose to focus on little me. How much this is supposed to give us the feeling of awe to Hashem and understanding that we are important and that every little act, what we do, is something that Hashem takes very seriously. It is dependent, every little act, what we do, and what we do with Yiras Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe continues today and explaining more in details what is the meditation that we are focusing while we do a mitzvah. Alter Rebbe says this before every time we do a mitzvah, before we study Torah, also we should have this in mind. Continues the Alter Rebbe here. V'gam izboinen eich she'oir ein soiv baruch hu ha'soiviv kol almin u'emala kol almin hu rotzen ha'elyon. We should also reflect how the light of the blessed Ein Sof, which encompasses all the worlds and pervades all worlds. As we explained yesterday, Hashem encompasses the worlds and it fills, pervades the worlds, meaning there's things that we sense, that there's the energy that comes to each and every type of creature individually. Then there is this is called the Memalikal Almin, that Hashem pervades the world, but there is also the encompassing light of Hashem, which for us, it's too powerful, too intense. So we cannot sense this encompassing light of Hashem. And yet Hashem encompasses and fills, it pervades the world, Hu Ratzon Elyon, which is identical with a higher will. And this, all of this, Umelubesh be'oisiyos ve'chachmas atayra. So this great light and will of Hashem is clothed in the letters and the wisdom of the Torah. The letters of the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, this is all part of the will of Hashem. And the same thing is also with the mitzvahs. Oy betzitzis v'tfilin elu. Or when you go to wear the talis, you put on the tefillin. Although today is Chalamayit, we don't. Most of us don't put on tefillin. But the idea that when you put on the talis and the tefillin, and when you study Torah, you focus and you understand the light of Hashem that is clothed in this tzitzis, in this mitzvah. And through the recitation and the study of the Torah, or when wearing the tzitzis or the tefillin, you draw down upon himself the blessed light of Hashem. The Hainu, which means al chelek eleika mimal shebetech gufay. We draw down the light of Hashem upon the part of God above, which is in the body, as we learned in the second chapter in Tanya, that the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, is a chelek eloka mimal mamash, is in us, literally a part of Hashem, and it animates it. And this he does with the intent that it may be absorbed and nullified in his blessed light. Our wisdom, our understanding, our emotions should be all absorbed in Hashem's light. How? The Alter Rebbe goes on in details and explains v'derech prat b'tefillin. Specifically, through tefillin, we should have in mind libotel v'likolel bechinas chachmasai ubinosai shebenafshay yoelekis. That the attribute of wisdom and understanding, which are in his divine soul, should be nullified and absorbed b'chinas chachmasai ubinosai shel ein sof baruch hu. Should be absorbed in the wisdom and understanding of the blessed Ein Sof. Amelu b'shois derech prat b'parshiyos kadesh v'oyim shemoya. And this chachma and bina, the wisdom and understanding of the blessed God, the blessed Ein Sof, they are clothed in the passages of Kadesh and V'hoya. Kadesh v'oya kiviyacha. We know we have in the Tefillin, there are four portions of the Torah that is written and placed inside the Tefillin. There's Kadesh, there's V'oya Kiyaviyacha, and there's Shema and V'oyim Shemoya. So here the Alter Rebbe explains that these verses, these passages of Kadesh and V'oyim Shemoya, Kadesh and V'oya Kiyaviyacha, the Kadesh represents the Chachma and the Bina, wisdom and understanding. And what are you in there is talking about the wisdom and understanding of Hashem. And this, by wearing the tefillin, having in mind that my wisdom and of this understanding of my godly soul will be included in this wisdom and understanding of Hashem. And how is it expressed? The Hainu shaloi liishtamesh bechachmosai ubinosai shebenafshoi bilti l'Hashem levadei. That is to say, that he should use the wisdom and understanding that are in his soul for God alone, only in pursuit of Torah and mitzvahs, and for understanding godliness. V'chein libotel v'likolel b'chinas adas shebenafshoi hakoilel chesed v'gvura she'en yira ve'ahava shebedibay. Also, similarly, you should intend that the attribute of das, Das is the third attribute, the third intellectual attribute. It is Chachma, Bina, Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. The knowledge is the part of the intellect that connects the person, that you start feeling the concept. You become connected to the concept. That's called Das. Das is a concept of connection. That there is the emotions already in the intellect. Within the intellect, there's already emotions of love and kindness and strictness. And this also, it says, is connected with, in the tefillin, we have the daled, and the back of the head. The tefillin is made with a knot in the shape of a daled. Daled represents also das, the knowledge. And from that knot, there is two straps that goes down on the right side and the left side of the person, which represents chesed and gvura, kindness and justice and severity. So the concept is that you, wearing the tefillin, having in mind that you have in there the portions of Kadesh, V'oyakev, V'yacha, which represents the Chachma and Bina, the wisdom and understanding. You also want to be included, to nullify and include the level of Das of your soul, the knowledge of your soul, which is the root of the emotions, Akoil el Chesed Gvura, which include the Chesed and the Gevura, the kindness and severity, Shehem Yira Ve'ava Shebelibay, which is the fear and love in his heart. Chesed, kindness, is represented in the love, and the fear is from severity. And where is this included in the tefillin? He says, "B'chinas das ha'elin ha'koil el chesed v'gvura." So your das should be included in the das ha'elin, the supernal das, which include the attribute of das, which include the chesed and gvura, the kindness and severity, which are clothed in the passage of Shema and V'hoyem Shemaya. Shema Israel is connected with the love, with chesed, as we say, Ve'ahavta Hashem Aleikecha, you should love Hashem. And V'hoyem Shemaya is connected with severity, with the gevura, which talks about the severity if we don't follow the mitzvahs, and so on. So all of this, when you wear the tefillin, you have this in mind. Which means, this is according to the statement that it says in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, L'shabed alev ve'amoyach chulu. That while putting on the tefillin, one should intend to make one's heart and brain subservient to Hashem. That's what we have in mind when we put on tefillin. Ube'atifas tzitzis, and why we put on the tzitzis, the talis, which we do today also, of course, Chol HaMoed. We also wear the talis every day. What do we have in mind? It's not just taking something and putting upon ourselves. This has great spiritual kavanas, intent. So Yechavein, we have to have kavanah, we have to have in mind, as it says in the Zoyar, lehamshich olav malchusa yisborech, that he should draw upon himself the blessed kingdom of Hashem. Asher hi malchus kol olamim v'chulu, which is the kingdom over all worlds. So Hashem is the king of all of the worlds. Nevertheless, we should intend and endeavor to focus at God's kingdom specifically over ourselves. Through this mitzvah, liyachad aleinu al yedei mitzvah zu, that we have it specifically in mind to focus the kingdom of Hashem over ourselves. When we do this mitzvah, we make Hashem king upon ourselves. We draw upon ourselves this great light of Hashem. This is similar to the commandment, you should surely set a king over yourself, meaning that it's in our hands to make the king upon ourselves. But before we made a king upon ourselves, he's not a king. In a sense, a king needs the people. When we take upon ourselves the kingdom of Hashem, he becomes the king. V'azai, and then afim b'chol zois loy tipo olav ma'emel v'fachad v'izgalos libay. Alter Rebbe continues and explains, what if a person is not capable, is trying, is thinking, is trying to bring out, arouse some emotions, to be connected, to be fearful and love to Hashem, and fear of Hashem, as he said, focuses on this chapter, but it doesn't work. It's not going. I'm trying, I'm thinking, I understand everything, it's fine. All of this makes sense, but still, I'm fearful of the bank account. I'm fearful of other things in this world, but I don't feel the fear or the awe of Hashem itself. Says the Alter Rebbe, don't worry about it. Even if you don't really feel it, the fact that you know it, the fact that you thought about it, and you focus on it, and you understand it, this itself is considered a full accepting the king of Hashem over you. That's continuing. This is what the Alter Rebbe says here. In such a case, meaning, having contemplated this matter, then, even though after all this meditation, no dread or fear descend upon him in a manifest manner in his heart, you still don't feel it. Nevertheless, says the Alter Rebbe, don't worry. Since he accepted the kingdom of heaven upon himself, and he drew upon himself the fear of Hashem. Blessed be in his conscious thoughts and rational volition. You really understand it, and you focus about it, you think about it. And this submission to Hashem and the fear of him is beyond a doubt a sincere one. How do we know that? Says the Alter Rebbe, Sharei Teva Nafsheis Kol Yisrael, because this is in the nature of the Jewish souls, not to rebel against the blessed Holy King. It is in our nature not to deny Hashem, not to rebel against Hashem. So the fact that we think about it in our thoughts, even if we don't actually sense it, we don't feel it, it is still considered fearing Hashem. Continues the Alter Rebbe, then the Torah that he studies, and the mitzvah, the commandment that he fulfills, because of this submission, and because of the fear that he drawn into his mind, this is termed a complete service. Like all service performed by a servant for his master or king. However, what if a person does the mitzvahs only with love? He's not involving the fear, says, I love Hashem, that's good enough for me. Says the Alter Rebbe, you're missing something very important. On the other hand, if one studies the Torah and performs a commandment with love alone, in order to cleave to him through the study of Torah and the performing of these commandments, this is not termed service of a servant. And there's something missing, because we do need to be also Eved Hashem. We need to serve Hashem. If you're doing it out of love, it's like a son doing something for his father, which is beautiful, which is amazing. But we need also the commitment of an Eved, of a servant, which is nullified to the master. Because the Torah says clearly, whereas the Torah has declared, you shall serve the Lord your God. And also it says, him you shall you serve. It is explained in the Zohar, the Parshas Behar. Hai Torah de Yavin alei oil bekadmise. This is just like the axe on which one first places a yoke. Right on top of the neck, there is a yoke. In order to make it useful to the world, begin le'apokamene tav le'alma, to make it useful for the world. Och en namis is the Zohar itzrich lebarnash lekabolo alei oil malchus shamayim bekadmise. He says, so too must a human being that's the first of all to submit the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. Vehi hai lo yishtakach gabei lo yisharye bekedusha. He says, and if this submission is not found in him, holiness cannot rest within him. The only way that the holiness of Hashem should rest within a person is when he submits himself, like with a yoke, to Hashem, to accept Hashem, to accept him as a king. And also in Raya Mehem, that is part of the Zohar, in page 111b, it is written, that every man must, in his divine service, belong to two categories and levels. Namely, the category of a servant who serves his master out of fear, and the category of a son who serves his father out of love. And although one may find a son who is also a servant, he says it is impossible to attain this degree without a prerequisite of the higher level of fear and awe known as Yirei La, as known to the initiated. This is a level which is a much, much higher level, but on the regular and the average person, when we're talking about serving Hashem, says the Alter Rebbe, we must have this concept constantly, that we're here to serve Hashem. Yes, we need to have the ahava, the love, and the fear, but the yiras Hashem is the focus, has to be the foundation, and when we have this, we can move forward. But this is the end of today's shir. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure to share this lesson, the most fundamental lesson that the Alter Rebbe teaches us. We should have a good Tamayad, and we'll see you, Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.